This is more about Larry McMurtry and process. Here's Larry McMurtry on process. Hollywood. Hollywood is a process. One thing that continues to amaze me, he wrote, about the movie business is the haphazard way people in it go about hiring screenwriters. Screenwriters who have not the slightest intellectual or emotional link to the project in question. Hollywood is a process, a bad process, wasting time and money. Pure foolishness. Here's another memo on process from Larry. At some point in time, most Hollywood writers get ahead, but they are often not able to stay ahead. It reminds me of gamblers. In addition to process and ratio and timing, there is setting that plays a key role in any good story. Larry is fine with his settings. Example, this is what he writes: only the Oklahoma Panhandle at dusk can challenge the Bridger Plateau for bleakness at winter's dusk. Another example, Wyoming is not a peaceful or a tame place. But what a setting. More from Larry on process. Fiction doesn't really require a clear mind. It's a semi-visceral experience. Screenwriting requires a sustained and reasoned intelligence. Following heart surgery, a quadruple bypass, I was simply too scrambled emotionally to do the linear A to Z organized narrative that becomes a screenplay. To compensate and continue to work in Hollywood, he took on a partner. Fiction also requires stamina, as on a cattle drive. It isn't accomplished in a day, a week, or a month. It's a long haul. You have to be strong enough to do it. I recall reading a book by a male poet. It was A Pale Rider, a book of shadows. In it, he declared, unhappily, that he could no longer write a poem due to a lack of testosterone. I thought he was kidding, and then I knew he was not. He was writing essays instead. Each essay, according to him, went through 40 or 50 drafts. Again, I thought he was making a joke. And then I knew he was not. He was 83, 85 years old, doddering, but wise enough to know that poetry was beyond him. As screenwriting became iffy for Larry after his heart surgery, a matter of physical and emotional stamina. Larry was old when he wrote this memoir, and he rather enjoys the role of wet blanket, or maybe because this book is about movies in Hollywood, he could be a one-man spoiler alert. Here he is, writing this: best not to professionalize a passion, as lovers the world over have discovered when they marry and notice a cooling. That dreaded cooling, the ultimate wet blanket. It comes as a real relief to be holed up here in the heart of the country, not knowing about anything but Larry and Roy. And even there, not knowing, my knowing is to a very limited extent. for knowing, substitute experiencing, again, to a very limited extent. But gone, for the most part, is COVID, masks and vaccines, mostly but not entirely, assaults on personal liberty, the economy, Afghanistan, the southern border. So, okay, it's magical thinking, meaning if I don't think about it, it will go away, or it won't happen, or it will get better. For this brief respite, believe me, ignorance is bliss. It's sort of like being in a cranial hot tub. My brain is warm and soothed. I don't believe in reincarnation, but if it were so, I think there would be rules. Pretty strict rules, too. For one, no déjà vu. The whole point of reincarnation is to expand the perspective on life. So, I've led a safe life. Next up, one full of hazards. Next, pour on the heartbreak and sorrow. Next, an early exit. You get the idea. No repeats. We want to fill out the canvas and use the entire palette. Each life, in its own way, a lesson, or part of a lesson, that leads to a wider view of life. And maybe, in the midst of my umpteenth life, when I am a famous female opera singer who cannot have children or stay with one man or woman, a light might go on. Oh, I see. Because now, assuredly, admittedly, most frustratingly, I do not see. My epitaph could well be, he didn't get it. I tried to get it, but I never got close. So I can comfort myself and say, hey, this is reincarnation. It's a process. You're not supposed to get it, not now. This is only one petal on the flower, and life is a big bouquet. So chill. Larry wrote, one quality great movie makers must have is tenacity. That's must in italics. I would think that I could call that tenacity movie drive, bringing that huge, unruly beast home. It's a tough, demanding process. Many movie makers repeat themselves. It's totally understandable. It's going with what works for them. It's what they do. It's who they are. Their process. And don't forget, Hollywood, essentially bad process, is constantly working against them.